Welcome to episode 10 of the Bulls REKAP Podcast. I'm Joe Cowley of the Chicago Sun-Times. You can read me in the Sun-Times. You can follow me on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, at JCowleyHoops. Follow at your own risk. Look, I've brought this group up before. We got these young guns that are following behind Casey Johnson and myself. As far as when we decide to hang this up, we're leaving the beat in good hands. And one of them is Cody Westerlund from The Score, my guy. So let's bring him in, and we're going to talk some Bulls. Cody, what's up, buddy?
Hey, how's it going? I appreciate the young gun terminology. I don't feel as young as I used to, but it still feels good to be on the beat and hang out with you boys.
So let's see. So when did you start doing the Bulls beat for The Score?
It was late January 2014, maybe early February by the time I showed up to a game, but that's when I came to Chicago. It's January 2014.
So since I've known you, you've gotten married. You've had, what do you got, like 8 kids now?
One.
Okay.
One is currently enough. I think you might even see diapers by the TV in the background. So anyone that's a parent can probably understand the state of the house in those situations. But
absolutely,
he's doing well.
It's survival. That's all it is. All right, let's get right into the Bulls. What are they doing, Cody? What are they doing in your eyes? What are they doing?
That's the question we sit around the table asking every night at Bulls games. Maybe not so much in my household, but I think right now they're paralyzed and waiting for the trade deadline. And I think they need to move some guys. And Zach LaVine obviously has been on the trade market for a couple of years now, and they've held out wanting value for him rather than a salary dump, or at the very start of this saga. At various points, it felt like speculation was they might have to attach an asset. I think it was smart that they clearly didn't do that.
Right.
But this is front office. We know they don't make a lot of trades. They don't make a lot of moves since summer 2021 when they flipped the roster the first time. So what they're doing right now is they're just rolling the ball out, and they're existing, and we play a game and we move on and we have the same conversation. So I think they're looking for trade value for a few of these guys, but the league doesn't value them at the same level, and that's why the Bulls are just in neutral all the time, it feels like.
Yeah, and right now I think there's a big hostage situation going on because down in Miami, there is a piece in Jimmy Butler that teams like Phoenix, Golden State highly covet. But Pat Riley, the president, has come out and decided to play hardball and get to this game of chicken with Jimmy and say we're not trading him. And yesterday or a couple days ago, Jimmy reiterated after being suspended for a week for conduct detrimental to the team that he wants to be out. So I think that's like it feels like that's the main domino that kind of has to fall. I think the Brandon Ingram thing, because of his injury and because of it almost feels like that's going to be a sign and trade in the offseason. I don't consider that the first piece that has to go now. But unfortunately, we were all in that press conference last week when we asked Billy over and over again basically about being mediocre and what the temperature of the trade market is for the team. And he reiterated twice that you can only dance when you got a partner. Not exactly what Bulls fans want to hear, but the fact that they acknowledged that they are searching for a partner for this dance, I think at least hints of something. In your mind, do you think something happens, or do you think that, again, this front office will not get it done? It will not find the partner they want, whether it's overvaluing their own assets or just not able to pull the trigger?
I think they make moves at the deadline. I don't think they'll be as big as what fans hope. And to cut to the chase, when we talk about that, I guess you got to just say Zach LaVine. If I had to guess, I don't think is going to be traded at this cycle, but I think there will be moves below him. What those could look like, obviously, Vooch on the trade market, Torrey Craig's an easy veteran to flip for very minimal return, Lonzo Ball expiring contract. I would even go so far as to entertain offers, certainly for Kobe White and Ayo Dosunmu, because I think one of the biggest things this front office has done wrong is hold on to their players too long till they don't have value anymore. And to me, Kobe isn't going to be really a positive asset on his next contract. So what, he's in year 2 of like a 3-year, $39-40 million deal with some incentives. He's an asset right now for teams. So like, to me, you have to think ahead and entertain those moves as well. So everyone's like, got to get rid of Zach LaVine. Well, if Zach keeps playing like this and there's no first-round pick on the table, there's no young player out there you like whatsoever at all in the deal to get him back, I could see why you'd hang on to him until the summer, until you can get something back that you like. But you still need to make sure you retain that top 10 draft pick, in my opinion, top 10 protected draft pick, in my opinion. And you can move other guys to help further that goal and also do the balancing act of acquiring some assets, whether they're picks off into the future, young players, whatever it is, acquire those and still keep building that base while hanging on to Zach until maybe you're more comfortable. So I think something happens. I think a veteran or two goes. And to me, the most interesting points, though, are does Zach get traded and do they think outside the box and consider trading Kobe or Io are the interesting things to me.
No, I mean, and those are good points because I don't think there's any reason, and not that Io and Kobe are redundant players. I don't think they necessarily are, but that position is very redundant for the Bulls right now. I mean, they just have too many pieces. Josh Giddey, in all likelihood, is going to be signed. It's just about at what comfort level are they going to sign him?
And they should absolutely play hardball with him because we've seen now they messed up the Patrick Williams situation last summer with the 5 years, $90 million. It was a point where he's playing so poorly right now that I think that should reinforce. You got to learn from your mistakes, right? Like new GMs, new front offices, even veteran established ones will make mistakes all the time. You have to learn from them, move on. And I think a couple mistakes there, they didn't play hardball enough with Patrick Williams, and they haven't gotten off some pieces earlier when they could have in trades in the past few years that would have put themselves in a better position. So nobody wants Josh Giddey in the NBA right now. So if you're the Bulls, you got to play hardball with them. And I think you have to look at this whole roster, and I would look at it and be like, everyone but Buzelis, I would entertain offers for and be ready to move on if I could get value.
I mean, that's a good point with if they can't move Zach, which is pretty realistic right now that's going to be tough to move unless there's a major injury in the next week. Just looking at the other teams that would want him. I mean, the Lakers thing, that's just not happening. Once the D'Angelo Russell contract was traded, that was their biggest chip to package for Zach LaVine. So that's not going to happen. The Clippers are up against it. They can't do it. You're just running out of places for him. If they can keep, I do agree with you, if they can stay in that bottom 10 and keep that pick, you have Modest, you have whatever asset you draft in June, and then you almost have Zach, who is now, I mean, so here's an example of the difference of Zach LaVine from the previous years, which was just on display after the New Orleans Pelicans loss. We all walk in the locker room, Zach's sitting there in a towel. Usually Zach, he's usually pissy after a loss, would get up and just go, I'm showering. We walk in, he's like, you guys need me? I'll talk. And he grabs a shirt, throws a shirt on, threw some chonies on, covered up, and did the interview before he showered. Again, the evolution of Zach LaVine to me has been unbelievable, and fatherhood has something to do with it. Obviously, you would know that. You're a new father. He's a multi-kid father now. So but I think he also, with DeMar gone, I think DeMar taught him some things. And you're looking at a guy, he's just enjoyable to be around. And it feels like this is the vet. This is a vet now. I mean, Vooch has always been professional. Zach, now you're like, this is the voice. This is the face of the team. This is a legit vet that gets it and knows how to treat the media and knows how to treat teammates right now.
Well, yeah. I mean, the important part of that is there's no ego to him this year compared to previous years. And that matters in the next team setting he's in, whoever it is, whenever it is, whether it's at this February trade deadline over the
And
summer,
I don't think it's fake either. I don't think he's faking it because he knows that will get him traded. I think it's legitimate, just his evolution.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt he's been much moodier in past years. But, I mean, this dates back to media day, basically. I mean, one of the first videos I think the Bulls put out on their social channels was like starting with Zach LaVine. I think it was filmed in his condo or something like that, his place. So he's been extremely accommodating to the team. He came out on media day, kind of set the tone. What you hear comes from me or my agent, Rich Paul. I'm ready to work. And there was skepticism, right? Like, of course, he comes out with that and says, I'm not going to create drama. And then he hasn't created any drama whatsoever. And of course, it's a little easier when you're the guy that gets the ball a little bit more, gets it in crunch time, when the coach draws up the plays for you. But and he's shooting 52% overall, 45% from the field. That fits in on any team in the NBA in any setting. The only question is, what would the trade parameters be down the line? So he's been really enjoyable to be around this year. I mean, the entire team, I think, has probably been more enjoyable than they should be, because I think they heard those low expectations, right? What were the Vegas win totals? The high 20s. I think a lot of people expected them to win maybe around 30 games, low 30s, and they're going to be on a 36, 38 win pace at the halfway point, depending on how the Wednesday evening game against the Hawks plays out.
With Billy, I mean, obviously you are at the Score. That's the flagship station for the Bulls. And look, we all know what this city is about. Right now, it's about the Bears coaching search. Yeah. That's just what it is. But at the same time, what do you think the feeling from what you hear from callers, and that really doesn't always tell a story, but from callers, in your own opinion, where do you see Billy Donovan as a coach?
I think thumb up or thumb down, it's still thumbs up from the fans. I do think there's a segment that gives him I think a lot of grief. I mean, people love talking about substitution patterns, who he should and shouldn't play. A lot of people, whether it's calls, feedback we get in person on social media, fans, whatever, want Matas Buzelis to play more, but they don't understand that's not so much a Billy Donovan decision, right? That's a front office decision. If Torrey Craig wasn't on the roster, Matas would get all of his minutes when he's healthy. The front office can come out at any point and say, play him 24 minutes a game instead of 13. I think he's just shy of 13 right now. But Billy made clear that media session you were referencing earlier a couple weeks ago or a week ago, where he's like, they never tell me what to do with rotations. We talk about players, strengths, weaknesses, how we can fit guys together, but they don't tell me play this guy or not play this guy. So that's why it's interesting. I still think some of the grief Billy gets is just a misunderstanding from fans of the front office being absent in many ways from what a bigger goal should be for some of these guys. So there's no doubt, Billy's a very great communicator. He's good with players. I think he's pretty good at game planning. I think his deficiencies have been when he was in playoff series with the Thunder against teams that were worse than the Thunder or about on the same level. His in-game adjustments were slow and they got outplayed and maybe outcoached by some player or other teams, certainly in that Blazers series he lost with the Thunder back in Oklahoma City. So there's fair criticism of him, but it's weird because the biggest red flags to me with Billy haven't even really played out because he hasn't been in that setting in Chicago other than one playoff series where the Bucks were clearly a much better team than the Bulls and outshot them from three-point range in a way that didn't even make the games close. So he's been the shield. You know that. You've written about it. You've talked about it. And he does a great job at that. And you look at the operation of the Bulls. If they didn't have Billy Donovan, it would be really disorganized in many, many other ways and a bigger mess.
I mean, could you imagine if they had a coach? I'm trying to think of guys who Joe Mazzulla is really tough to get much from. Spoelstra, Spoelstra's pregame press conferences sometimes last 30 seconds. Yeah. No, 30 seconds. He'll answer one question, and then guys just know he's just not going to give you anything. So when you have a front office that's not going to give you anything, and you have a coach that's not going to give you anything, I think the frustration it's not just with the media, it would be with the fan base would feel it because of the frustration we have as far as, I mean, Billy, he will tell you X's and O's. He will give you as honest as best an answer that he can on anything you ask him, which we appreciate, but I think the fans should appreciate because there aren't many guys. I mean, look at all the opposing media that comes into Billy Donovan press conferences. They're like, I can't believe he just will answer anything, and he does. So from our perspective, he's great, and with this front office, he's doubly great because they are absentee as it comes. One of the players you mentioned, and obviously a guy that's been criticized, been scrutinized, been looked at upside down every which way you can look at it. Patrick Williams.
Yeah.
We're to the point with Patrick, and I think Patrick says the right things. I know there's now a frustration with the organization with him. I know they have him, they didn't feel like in the past the right developmental guys were working with him, in his opinion, not in their opinion. But they now have him with Peter Patton, who they're hoping is the whisperer, the P. Will whisperer. I don't know what boulders have to be moved out of his way for him to feel like he can take 15 shots a night, or he can grab 10 rebounds and not feel like he's in people's way. And I don't know if we're at the point now where it's almost too late. You are what you are. I'm trying to think of a high draft pick that year 5 or 6.
It's hard.
It hit. It's hard. It's especially unless you move teams, then it's a whole thing. What's your frustration level with him, and are you kind of out on Patrick Williams?
Yeah, I'm out. If you just again need a one-word answer, it'd be out. The rebounding thing, I don't have any hope for. Right, At some point, you either have it or you don't. And he doesn't have that aspect to his game. He's not aggressive enough, not in the right spots, doesn't put a body on enough people all the time. And sometimes he just gets his hands on the ball and can't corral it. That's a major problem for him, and his handles are a major problem. And that's the threshold to taking more shots, really, or the hurdle to that would be being better at ball handling, because he loses the ball too many times going to the hoop. And then later he doesn't have confidence to do it. And you're not going to get 15 corner three-pointers in a game. You're not going to get 15 catch-and-shoot shots in a game when this is your Bulls team you're playing with, right? So until I think the ball handling might be something to me that could get better, if you're looking for an optimistic spot, what can improve. No hope for the rebounding. The ball handling maybe gets a little better. Then he gets a little more comfortable continuing to go to the hoop. But his 2-point, he's got, I think, 46 2-point buckets this year in 31 games played for him. It's just astonishing how little he does on offense besides stand behind the 3-point line and shoot. And there's a small role that does need to be played there, right?
Right.
Somebody
Absolutely.
who's a solid team defender, and I think he's a solid system defender, off-ball defender, better than he is on ball against a good opposing scorer. He's getting blown by this year, it feels to me, more than in the past. And it feels like he's just been a step slower than in the past. But I do think he knows where to go in the defensive scheme, and obviously can get his hands in a few passing lanes, deflect, block some shots. So that's what he can do. But when that's all you can do and stand in the corner and shoot threes and can't do anything else, especially on a team that needs more at your draft stature, it's just hard to have much hope with him. So he'd have to really do a turnaround for me, and I think a lot of people in the Bulls organization, to turn into true believers. But they gave him the money. They don't have anyone else at the position, and that just goes back to the stuck in neutral spot. I mean,
that's their front court is so just depleted of bodies and small. I mean, they have no choice. I mean, they have to make that work unless Modest is ready to start. And I don't even know what Modest is yet. I mean, he doesn't know what he is yet. So is he a big, small forward? Yeah. Is he a 5 in a small lineup? I think they still have a lot to figure out and unlock with him. But, I mean, he does show signs and he does show promise, but I'm not as excited about him as I was the first month of the season. And, again, that might be because playing time is so sporadic, or maybe he's hitting a rookie wall. It's kind of tough to say. But I see the skill set. I mean, we get to, when we come in some of the practices and shoot arounds, whatever it is, we get to see him working on screw around dunks and stuff like that. And dude's an athlete. I mean, there's no doubt about that. It's
see that in his ability to block some shots too. It's some of it's right positioning and instincts, but some of it's
he could cover some ground too. Yeah,
I mean, he's got long arms. He gets it. His timing's pretty good. So, to me, that's what I like best about him. But this rookie class has been really, really poor so far.
Yeah,
and some of them aren't getting opportunities. Some of them are just destined to be role players. Some will be out of the NBA in 5 or 6 years. anyway, it's way too early to tell on what his future may be. But like, nonetheless, to me, he's not what you build around, but he's at the base level of the foundation that you start adding to, that you have hope about. And that's just his age. I think he's still 20, obviously, but you got to get that next player in that age range in this draft class in there. Ayo Dosunmu is a guy who I really like what he's done this year. He's been start of the year so poor from 3-point range. So his 3-point percentage hasn't been great. Been a little inconsistent from there, but every other aspect of the game, I think he's been pretty good, pretty solid for the Bulls, and has thrived in this up-tempo transition with Billy Donovan's new style and playing style this year for the team. So, like, he's a piece that you could keep in that age range, and you start to see the outline a little bit more of what you could have. And I know I mentioned trading him. I mean, obviously, if you get great value for Ayo, right. I'd be open to that too.
You got to include Josh Giddey, because I have a feeling AK – because he traded Caruso, he's going to do whatever.
That's a fascinating. Like, what do you think is best case scenario for the Bulls now with Josh Giddey? If you look a couple years out, right? Like, could he be a guy who gets a little better at defense, a little bit better at 3-point shooting, and like fits in as the sixth man? And all of a sudden you're like, okay, I have something. Or are we just going to watch him try to be the starting point guard for a couple of years? It doesn't pan out. And you get games like last night, right? Like, he almost had a triple-double, and he was solid in many ways, but, like, you didn't feel like he was a winning player at the end of the game whatsoever.
It would have been the worst triple-double of any Bulls player I've seen in years.
2 of 12, a couple of really bad turnovers, a couple of blow-bys.
Here's what I think. I mean, first of all, Josh Giddey, to me, I think what's going to happen, he's not getting this $30 million a year. I think it's going to be more of a 3-year, $60 million if they don't let him go to market. If they let him go to market and then play the match game, I would be shocked if any team goes more than 3 years, 45. I would be shocked. I mean, he's got positional size. He does see the floor well. There are some things he does, but I would be surprised if the market offers more than $15 million a year.
I also think because of the more restrictive CBA that the NBA is under now, right? Like, you can't take in more money once you're past a certain apron and trades. You can't use mid-level depending on where you're at once you go over the tax. And this isn't an apples-to-apples comparison with the Bulls because they don't go into the luxury tax. But just in general, I think there should be a feeling among teams, certainly the big spenders and also just everyone, like, you shouldn't be as afraid to lose players in free agency as before because, like, that cap space – is more valuable in some ways than it could be in past years. Or you can really put yourself in a bind when you overpay guys. In a way, you didn't put yourself in such a bind 5 or 10 years ago when you overpay guys because of the way the CBA is set up. So, like, that just even nudges me more when you go to restricted free agency with the Josh Giddey to hold the line in a way they didn't with Patrick Williams.
Yeah, and so, I mean, I think what I need to see from Josh Giddey, because I think Oklahoma City, because they had so many great defenders around him and he kind of grew up with those guys, I think they just said, oh, we just got enough to protect Josh. Yeah. That was exposed in the Dallas series, though. You don't have enough to protect Josh because in playoff basketball, when things slow down, and they hunted him. I mean, they hunted him in pick and roll. They hunted him in every way possible. So I would like to see if he knows what he is defensively. I think it bothers him. He doesn't want to be that hunted guy. Yeah. So I would like to see one more year. I mean, because I think they definitely are going to re-sign him. So it's not like I'm unrealistic about it. I think Josh Giddey will be back. I would like to see him one more year, obviously, as a starter, getting the chance to be a better defender. After that, if it doesn't happen, he is what he is. He's going to be a bridge guy to the next point guard. And hopefully you didn't go more than 3 years with him because then he will become your sixth man eventually.
The path to him being like passable or not a huge black hole defensively to me has to be a strength because he's never going to be quick enough to stay in front of opposing guards. He's just not. So he's got to get a little stronger where maybe he can guard that opposing small forward or power forward who will have strength on him, but is maybe not going to be able to attack him as easily as they do these days.
But I mean, we saw Korver here. We saw Dunleavy here. Both those guys didn't have the great, and I think they both have better footwork than Josh Giddey. But both of them were great team defenders, understanding angles, understanding how to use your body to cut off a guy. I mean, Josh is 6'8" and has to understand that defensively at times. So I think that's the evolution they need to see from him. What do you think the feeling is in the city right now about, especially compared to what it was 2-3 years ago, about Arturas Karnisovas and Mark Eversley? I mean, you get to hear a lot more than I do. Are people out on them, or do you think the fan base? Okay, so I mean,
I think so. It's interesting right now because you have the Bears GM Ryan Poles having done about a 180 in his approval ratings in the matter of a couple months. But
I was in front of that.
You were in front of that. You were stumping. You were leading the campaign. But you'll still hear people be like, okay, Ryan Poles did get a promising quarterback.
Right.
Finally, someone we have more hope for at that position. Like, he deserves longer. He's obviously had his flaws. Like, you can see even the minority opinion, the majority of people would be like, yes, I understand that frame of mind, even though I might want him gone. I don't really see anyone stumping for Mark Eversley and Arturas Karnisovas at this point, because the thing that I don't get from AK is he's so dedicated to competing in that middle. And if you go back to the trade deadline last year, he says it's because he owes it to the fans. And there's only two people you owe that competition to: your boss, if your boss wants it, or the fans, right? And from what we know, Michael Reinsdorf is not forcing him to do anything or take any path yet.
Right, it's his
you
show.
Might have more information on that than me, but from what I understand and hear, it's AK's show. And this is the path he's chosen, and he justifies it by saying, I owe it to the fans and I owe it to this organization and the history. That's not what the fans care about right now, right? This team knows how to play 500 basketball and lose in the first round, right? They did it with Fred Hoiberg a couple times before they started rebuilding. Had a tank. I mean, they went out in the first round against the Bucks a couple of years ago when they were a better team than 500, but it was still a first round exit. That's not what the city desires at this point. So that's, I think, informing their complete opinion of him. And sports move faster than they used to. I mean, player movement all the time. Everyone's scheming, looking at free agency, forcing their hand, not just with a year left on their contract, sometimes with 2 or 3 years left on their contract. I mean, the climate of the NBA is stars opt into as big of money they can get, play a year somewhere, reevaluate, can force a trade, ask for a trade at any point, right? Like, the trickle-down effect of that is there's just more movement among all teams in the NBA, overturning and overhauling their rosters in many ways, and the Bulls are just stuck in this static where they don't do that, and that's what people want to see. Turn it over if you're going to be middling, and they have not turned it over enough, which, again, brings us to another pivot point at another trade deadline here in a few weeks.
Were you at the media happy hour that Arturas got up and walked away from my table? Were you at that?
Before the season? Yes. I was at the happy hour. I was not sitting at that table. I've heard a lot of your stories, so
you did see him get up and leave after several of my comments to him.
I didn't. You can fill me in on more of the comments and such, but I was talking to a couple other members of the Bulls front office. Little lower ranking in the hierarchy.
Right. The clean version of one of the things I relayed to him is I was like, Arturas, here's what you have to understand. You know, you think coming from Denver to Chicago, you've gone to like some lion's den. You did not. You went from one soft hippie city to a bigger soft city. I mean, this is a soft market. If you're an owner in this town, you just look around. This fan base slurps up rebuilds like it's Cleveland or Kansas City. I mean, if you're going to rebuild in a major city, Chicago is the perfect place to do it because
that's a good point.
Fan bases here buy hope more than they buy results. I mean, it's sad to say, but this is not Philadelphia. This is not Boston. This is not New York or even close to it. And so my point to him was, why are you so afraid of this fan base turning on you while staying this current path is what is making them turn on you? And then other stuff was said, and he eventually got up and walked away. Well, I mean, with a smile on his face, but that might be the last media happy hour that the Bulls have in the preseason. And
you can blame me. Yeah, it's good that he's getting that message, right? Because like fans always say, like, do they hear these things? Do they hear the dissenting arguments? Like, do you guys ask these questions? And like, I need to praise you for asking Billy that series of questions a couple weeks ago about the rebuild. And because like anyone who ever comes out and says these guys are never challenged, like they don't face these questions, they do just on the two times a year, maybe three, they talk. And they otherwise deny requests to speak at various times of the year. But like you framed it perfectly to Billy. Like, I mean, you're respectfully like, Billy, you're the only one I can't ask. So I apologize for peppering you here. But every question the fans had about what's the future of this organization, Billy trying to give as much information as he could, but like he can only give so much because his reach ends when the buzzer sounds at that night a lot of times. You know, it starts when the ball's tipped and how he can affect stuff, but he can't affect the long term at this point.
And he's such a tunnel-focused X's and O's. I don't think he gives a crap unless something's about to happen. I think his mindset is don't tell me unless it's about to happen. He's not worried about making sure he's going to the grocery store and picking up the groceries for the food he's making that night. That's just not him.
To me, so people are always like, what can the front office do? Obviously, they could have traded people, right? Like
Andre Drummond is the biggest step in the last year.
It could have easily had a couple second-round picks for him. Yeah. But like even looking at this year, things you could have done. I don't know what the Vooch market is. Doesn't sound like too much has been going on, but like if at any point they had a a second round pick on the table, I think that's about what they're going to end up at the end. Getting like they should have done that. You could probably again trade a guy like Kobe or Io sooner if you're more aggressive because those guys can help more quickly. And again, they haven't been on the market really. So nothing there, but like you can be more proactive there. But with your team, you can be a little more proactive. Like if they said Billy, Buzelis needs 24 minutes a game, Billy would do it. I mean, he might argue and share his point, and maybe there's different games and stuff. But like if they just came in and said, we do need to prioritize this guy's development more, play him more, play the veterans a little less, he would do it, right? Yeah. Like so there's these small steps they could have taken even within the course of a season to do something like that prioritized the future a little bit, made him a little bit worse because Buzelis is mistake prone, certainly here in his rookie year. But they're very, very hands off on everything. Roll the ball out for training camp and see what happens until the next transactional cycle.
I would like to see Modest start a game over P. Will. He's worked with the first unit before. It's not like I haven't seen him work with the first unit, but I would like to see him start a game because I just want to see what he adds defensively as far as rim protection. And I mean, you would think, okay, does that send a message to P. Will? It probably does. I think P. Will is very insulated in outside messaging. Yeah. So I don't think it would do that, but I think it would just give a look just to say, can this kid handle it? Let's do this for a week and see what it looks like. I mean, and maybe we'll even get to that point after the trade deadline. So who knows? All right, let me get you out of here with the interrogation room.
Yep.
You know how it works.
I know of it.
First thing that comes to your head. You can start your own team with any Bulls player, but you have to take age and contract into consideration. Who's the one player you'd start it with?
Buzelis. I'd start from scratch, I think.
Okay. All right. Toughest the reputation, the toughest reputation of a personality to deal with at the Score.
Toughest reputation of a personality to deal with at the Score. It might have been Danny Parkins. Does that count? He left.
Yeah, it counts. Big diva. I mean, I actually like Danny, but
we love Parkins, but like, I mean, the reason he's in national TV now is because he held everyone to a higher standard, right?
There you go.
He had bigger ideas. He expected more. So it was nothing certainly personal or anything.
Right, gotcha.
There's times he'd be like, why didn't we do this with this on this video? Or I have this request of this person and that person. We could have done this. I will tell you the opposite answer to that most people assume. I guess I'm asking
the easiest to deal with.
Dan Bernstein, everyone thinks because Dan yells at callers, right? Dan yells at callers all the year. They think he's terrible. The guy, I mean, I edit his Bears columns and stuff, and like if I
he's a good writer, by the way.
He's a great writer. If Dan's in the middle of a family event and I asked him to write Bears, he'd be like, all right. Let me just get the family out of here, go home, and I'll get on my computer right away and write. Like the easiest person of all time to deal with on that, has never complained once about like any video or podcast links we share, anything in any regard. So Dan's probably the easiest, but I would say Parkins is probably the one that held us to a higher standard and forced us a little bit. And you're like, sometimes he's right. Sometimes he might be wrong.
You have to choose right now. You own the Bulls. AK and Eversley or Garpax are back.
Oh my God.
Got to pick.
Ooh. I'll go Garpax. They identify
the draft history.
They identified talent very well in the draft in their first 10, 12 through Jimmy Butler.
Marcus Teague was like the only major misstep. Everything else, Bobby Portis. I mean, guys like that.
Denzel Valentine didn't pan out, but that wasn't a great draft either. And it was like a middle.
Hutchinson.
Oh yeah, that was a bad promise that they hadn't got him.
And that was a second pick in the first
22,
round,
I think overall.
All right, the coaching.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry. I was just saying the draft history is better. AK and Mark Eversley draft history is very poor right now.
Who'd think we'd be at that stage where that's the choice? The coaching game. I say a coach. You tell me either or, and then it moves on from there. Steve Kerr or Pop?
Steve Kerr.
Kerr or Carlisle?
Kerr.
Kerr or Billy Donovan?
Kerr.
Kerr or Tom Thibodeau?
Ooh, I'd still go Steve Kerr for offensive innovation.
Kerr or Spoelstra?
Spoelstra, I think.
Okay, there Spoelstra wins. All right, there we go. Over and under of how many diapers you were changing a day when diapers were a thing in that household?
Well, they
still are probably.
Yeah. Are we doing what day of the week are we doing daily average?
Daily average out of just an average week. You're just this is just you just
probably 10 to 12 in a week, maybe.
Maybe. That's pretty good. Look at you. You.
That number spikes. My wife works a lot of full Saturdays because she's a wedding planner.
Okay.
So those are busy days.
Those are busy days, right?
Yeah, you got the guy solo most of Friday night, Saturday by yourself. There's no sharing on those, so she carries the burden most of the days. I don't want to mislead there, but yeah.
All right.
We get some garbage time stats, I guess you could say. I pile up sometimes.
This is a personal question for me, and unless you've listened to every pod, it might not be as personal to you. There's a bus with Joe Cowley on it. Yeah. It's going over one side of the cliff.
Yeah.
There's another bus with your kind of teammate, Alyssa Bergamini, in another bus going over another side of the cliff. And you could only rescue one. Who is it? Now, remember.
Oh, I thought you said who was I going to go over the cliff with in the bus?
No, you can rescue one of the buses.
I'm rescuing Alyssa. She's about to get married in the next few months, next year?
She's about to get married. She has no kids. Her fiance could replace her easily.
Hey, I just told you the other day I had you live into like 118. You wouldn't die, and you're like, whoa, I'm going to die soon. So if you're going to die soon here, I should go rescue Alyssa.
Listen, I had you 3 kids.
I had you live in to be like the world's oldest person. You're like, I don't want that. I don't need that. I'm not going to make it that far. And I'm like, can't kill off Cowley. He's still going to be here when he's over 100 years old, antagonizing Bulls fans, talking about Chicago City ownership and teams, and people are still going to be upset on probably some new social media platform we don't even know about yet. And you're like, nope, decades before that.
I said 70s. I'm 70s.
70s. Okay.
All right. Well, Bergamini wins again. I will get her somehow.
What's the scoreboard on that now?
She picked the White Sox beat to live over the Bulls beat, which involves you.
Oh, I didn't know that information. Oh my God.
Yes, she picked Merkin, not married, just has a house cleaner. That's the only person that would miss him. Lamont Pope, probably a nice guy. Daryl, my coworker at the Sun-Times, who's like 70, over the Bulls beat. And I even went through. I said, Cody just had a kid. Will Gott, she didn't care. She wanted to save Merkin. So now you know the background. You might want to rethink.
I like the idea of being in the bus who I'm going off the cliff with, and it'd be you. I feel like you'd think you could save it like it was a diehard.
I think we had this conversation of
you think you can land an airplane. You think you can direct a bus to land in some canopy of trees in the forest and live.
I can. Trach, if someone is choking, I could cut someone and put a straw in. There's just certain things I feel like I could do. Fight in a gladiator pit. I think I could do that.
Yeah.
There's just things like that. Dude, thanks, man. I appreciate you coming on. This is it's fun having the young guns on and just talking Bulls in general.
Yep, let's do it. Let's do it again. Obviously, after one of these transaction cycles down the line, when we know a little bit more.
We won't be doing it then.
Well, we might, but it'll just be the same topics.
Exactly. Thanks, Cody. Appreciate it.
All right, you take care. Take care.
All right. Cody Westerlund, good dude. Another score person. Don't like his answer. People have to really think this Alyssa thing through. Someone will agree with me. Her betrayal to the Bulls beat is not going to go unchecked. Let's go to Cowley Island and the rant. Look, it is mid-January right now. We are about 3 weeks away from the NBA trade deadline. The one thing I'll put up. I'll have some kind of understanding if Arturas comes out. It doesn't mean I don't think he's lying, but if Arturas Karnisovas comes out February 6th in the afternoon when the deadline has come and gone and says, we aggressively tried to move guys and we could not find a partner. And we could not find a partner for the value we wanted, or everyone was trying to, undersell what we had. I want to hear we aggressively tried to move guys and we could not find any partner, whether it's the apron or whether it's the current landscape of teams, playoff teams and payroll. I can at least swallow that pill. I won't like it. I'll swallow it. I'll say, okay, unless he's lying to me, which, executives are paid to lie, I will not even the benefit of the doubt. I will have some sort of understanding as I'm writing this column and ripping him that I will not at least make it personal or go overboard like I have in the past with some members of Bulls front offices. If he comes out and we want to stay competitive, we are looking around and we feel like we can make a run at this thing, that's it. That's it. Completely out on the front. Right now, I'm almost out. There's a sliver of, okay, let's give him a second chance to make this rebuild, a second rebuild. Let's see if he can do it. Let's see if he and Mark Eversley can start identifying talent. But if he comes out and there's any kind of hint that this is a competitive decision or this is a decision that was made because there were trades on the table, but we value our players more than what was being offered. Out, 100%. Out. And if there's any media members on this beat that aren't out with me, I will make sure that they understand that they are wrong. So can't have that. This is it. This is a monumental trade deadline for this front office. And I don't even want to give it a free pass into the offseason of, we have to revisit these in the offseason. This has to be done immediately because of what's at stake with that protected top 10 pick. So, all right, let's get to the list. I like to do a list every week. This list is going to be a little bit different. We are at the halfway point of the NBA season. It doesn't feel that way because obviously the All-Star weekend and all that is not until February, but we are at the halfway point of the 82-game schedule or about there. So I'm going to hand out some midseason awards to these guys. Here's my list of awards for the Bulls players. MVP. If you would ask me a month ago, I would have said Vooch. right now, I'm telling you, Zach LaVine. Willing defender. The numbers are the numbers, and his January so far has been absolutely ridiculous. Elite. He's playing elite basketball right now. Comeback player of the year. Pretty easy. Lonzo Ball. Again, a guy who we all came into the season saying, if he plays 20 games and there's the maintenance between practices and games is just ongoing and you really can't practice and everything is about getting ready for that next game. That has not been the case. Billy cleared that up. Billy Donovan cleared that up yesterday by saying Lonzo is a full participant in shoot-arounds. He does his workout, he does his rehab, but he's jumping in scrimmages. I mean, he's doing everything. There is no handle with kids' gloves right now. Sixth man. This one's tough. Jalen Smith's done some nice things, especially the first 6 weeks to 8 weeks of the season. Not so much anymore. We're going back to Lonzo Ball, Mr. Plus and plus minus. Most disappointing player. Again, I'm going to be Captain Obvious on this. Patrick Williams. Josh Giddey could be brought up, but you paid Patrick Williams. You paid him to be something more, something closer to a number 4 overall pick. You have not paid Josh Giddey yet. Most tradable asset right now, I'm going to go back to it. Lonzo Ball. I think there's not one playoff team that I look at that he would not be an instant impact to their second unit, which is huge in the playoffs. I mean, obviously I know the rotation tightens and you're going down to eight guys, maybe 9 for some teams, but he's a top 8 player on any playoff team and would be a huge boost for a second unit. You could close with him because of his defense. Obviously there's the minutes restrictions, but they're even loosening up. I think Billy Donovan mentioned that they're looking to see if they get it up to 26, 27, more consistent. I don't know if it would go above that. Your best first-year player. Again, Jalen Smith's in the running. Modest, I would say he's in the running. But when you look at the numbers, you got to go Josh Giddey. He's your best first-year Bulls player right now. And the most underrated, Ayo. This 10 games that he's missed with this injury, this right calf injury, sucks. But before he went down with that injury, I think he put his shooting woes from the first month of the season behind him. And here's the thing with Ayo. He is the engine in this high pace. When you watch, because he doesn't need to get the ball passed up to him to be R2 button, turbo button. He'll get a rebound. He'll get the ball, and he just goes. And he's beating guys down the court after makes, which is sick, which is ridiculous. So relentless as far as pushing pace. I think he's been the most underrated player. I think he's emerged as one of their best two-way players. So Ayo wins that final and last award. And that's it. I want to thank Cody, thank Ryan McGuffey again for getting this all done. And I'm Joe Cowley, and remember, I got next.